Hello and welcome to Useful Idiots. I'm one of your hosts, Katie Halper. This is Monday Morning, where we go over the Sunday morning news shows that we watch so that you don't have to.
And I'm also Aaron Maté. I'm here to do the task that Katie just unraveled.
Yes, he is also Aaron Maté. Did everyone tweet this out? Aaron, you tweeted it out?
I did tweet it out. Yes, and I
Right,
lied. I said we're live before we were actually live. So
well, you know what?
Everybody. Yeah.
No, keep going.
I just want to apologize for my deceit. I'm sorry.
And this is a safe space for Aaron to admit that, because we know you're a forgiving, loving audience. Now, Kevin Spence, actually, can you re-highlight that? This is a teachable moment of what not to do. Kevin Spence writes, usually I wait for content before I commit to a like. Well, Kevin, have you not seen us before? Do you really have so little trust in our content? I mean, we do this all the time. I think you can like it. I'd like to know how much content you need. I mean, we've provided you now with about a minute. I think the content speaks for itself. I'm going to ask everyone else to like the stream. Just do it. Like it now. Monique in London. Katie. Hello, Katie. Oh, well, thank you for the super sticker, Loner Weirdo. Really appreciate that. Someone wrote something nice about my hair, which is very nice. And
I wrote that.
Under his pseudonym, Monique in London. Yeah. And if you appreciate my hair, you know how you can express your gratitude to this hair is by liking the stream.
Mm-hmm. You hear that, Kevin? By the way, Kevin, if I have to collaborate with the NSA and YouTube and Google to track your likes, from now on, I'm not going to start the content until I see a like from you. Okay,
yeah,
that's my play.
Seriously, yeah. So someone said something like, it's funny. Someone said something. I'm not going to respond to the haters, but someone asked me to read something, which I'd never read, and they didn't even offer to pay any money for it. I don't know what you guys think I am or who you think I am. Anyway, thank you, everyone. And thank you for, let's see, someone just wrote, now, Aaron, I don't want you to feel jealous because people haven't commented on your hair. And sometimes people actually say hurtful things about your hair.
I mean, abusive things about my hair. Abusive.
So Mictian Carax says, I like because Aaron's eyes are dreamy. So
that's very kind. Thank you.
That's very kind. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good weekend, Aaron?
I developed this really nasty cough. So that kind of put a damper on my weekend, but otherwise, yeah. How was yours?
Good. It was good. Make sure that you stay hydrated, Aaron.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, I will.
So here's the assignment. Everyone like Aaron, stay hydrated, and also make sure that you join us at 11 a.m. where we're going to be on Call In, where we take your questions. Again, call in. Did we link to that in YouTube, Wilson?
Yes, we did. It's right there for everybody to click on.
There, so you do it because we know that 1 hour of us is not enough. Definitely going to need to call in to ask us some questions and comments. Yeah. All right. Also, Aaron, make sure you gargle with salt water.
Done and done.
Awesome. Great.
Done and done.
Yeah. So should we get started with our clips?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's see. Our first one is friend of show, Adam Schiff on Face the Nation with friend of show.
Yes, that's because, everybody, we have bad news. Once again, we've been robbed of the Chuckster and Meet the Press. It was preempted.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, trigger warning. Yeah, trigger warning, guys. They were preempted again this week. Sorry. Okay.
Go now to California Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff. He joins us from Los Angeles. Mr. Chairman, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You wear a lot of hats, but I want to ask you about the January 6th committee that you serve on. The Justice Department, as you know, on Friday decided not to prosecute the former Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, or Social Media Director Dan Scavino for refusing to cooperate with your committee. I know the committee said that was puzzling. Is it your understanding that these men are immune from all prosecution?
No, they're not. And it is very puzzling why these two witnesses would be treated differently than the two that the Justice Department is prosecuting. There is no absolute immunity. These witnesses have very relevant testimony to offer in terms of what went into the violence of January 6th, the propagation of the big lie, and the idea that witnesses could simply fail to show up. And when the statute requires the Justice Department to present those cases to the grand jury, they don't, is deeply troubling. We hope to get more insight from the Justice Department, but it's I think, a grave disappointment and could impede our work if other witnesses think they can likewise refuse to show up with impunity.
Is it because these two?
So just a word, if anyone happened to have fallen asleep in the last 30 seconds or find your eyes rolling to the back of your head because this man and this topic is so insanely boring, you are not alone. But unfortunately, you're going to have to prepare yourself because for at least the next week, January 6th is going to be in prime time. The hearings are going to be held in prime time. So this is going to be a lot of what you're hearing about, even though Democrats are heading into midterms where they're facing the serious prospect of major losses. And even though there's so many other issues going on right now, inflation, a bad economy, gun massacres, the Ukraine proxy war, this is what Democrats are going to be focusing on intensively, even more intensively over the next few weeks.
Yep. So buckle up, guys.
So we're giving you a special preview.
Yeah.
So that's why we're sitting through this.
Men had such close proximity to President Trump. Is the executive privilege argument actually applying here?
That shouldn't be the explanation here because, of course, there are a great many things these witnesses can testify with no even plausible claim of executive privilege. They were both involved in campaign matters. They both have documents that they could offer. None of this is protected by privilege. And the idea that you can simply refuse to show up rather than show up and say, as to this question, I'm going to exert a privilege, that just invites others to be in contempt of Congress or be in contempt of judges around the country in other courtrooms. And I think it's a very dangerous precedent to.
Katie, how excited are you by this talk about privilege? What constitutes privilege or not? What information is protected by privilege and what isn't? What documents can Adam Schiff access? Which, by the way, are the same documents that the Justice Department can access when it's conducting its much more sweeping and consequential investigation into January 6th. Because let's say you're someone who really, really cares about January 6th. Yeah. I'm not. I think it was a horrible thing. I think it was an awful riot. But I have other priorities. But let's say you really care about it and you want to see accountability for it. You want to see if there was some, extensive plot involving Trump to overthrow the government. Fair enough.
Maybe Putin.
Sure. Yeah, sure. The best place to find that out is the Justice Department, which is conducting a massive investigation of its own and which has far more surveillance and subpoena power than even Congress does. Okay. But Congress, for some reason, I can tell you why in a second, is conducting its own parallel investigation that is adding basically nothing to what the Justice Department can already uncover. So if you really care about accountability for January 6th, you should let the Justice Department investigation unfold. But unfortunately, this is a sideshow that Adam Schiff, I think, is using because he's the guy who gave us Russiagate. Right. He read the Steele dossier into the congressional record. He told his audience, including on these cable news shows, that he had seen more than circumstantial evidence of collusion. And ever since that failed, he's been on this multi-year quest to double down. So that's what I see this coming out of. It's just Democrats giving themselves one more excuse to not look at real issues and instead focus on this inter-elite drama that they always concoct.
And of course, my Putin reference was because Hillary Clinton did want to see Donald Trump's phone records from January 6th to see if he was chatting with Putin. That's right. That's what she said to Nancy Pelosi. Yeah. And Nancy Pelosi agreed. And I'm sure the Justice Department will be looking for those Putin-Trump phone calls on January 6th. And if they exist, we'll find out about them. Yeah.
New York Times was first to report. CBS has confirmed that Mike Pence's chief of staff, Mark Short, actually warned the Secret Service and the lead agent protecting the vice president the day before January 6th that he thought the president would turn on the vice president and that it would pose a direct security risk. We know Mr. Short plans to testify himself before your committee. Is that sufficient? Do you need to hear from the vice president?
Margaret, we're not commenting on specific witnesses, so I can't confirm or deny who will appear before us.
Why
I can
not?
say that certainly one of the themes that we will be fleshing out is the fact that in advance of the 6th, that there was an understanding of the propensity for violence that day, of the participation of white nationalist groups, of the effect that the continued propagation of this big lie to rile up the country and rile up the president's base was likely to lead to violence. So you will see that theme among the narratives that will be exhibited during these hearings. But as to a particular witness, I really can't comment.
But if you don't deliver a bombshell on Thursday.
By the way, also notice what they're never going to do, which is hold the security services accountable for failing to prevent the violence that he says was entirely foreseen. So if the violence was entirely foreseen, and it wasn't just by Trump and his circle, it was by people in law enforcement, people in government, why wasn't there sufficient protection of the Capitol to safeguard against it? And that's the question I've yet to see Adam Schiff really explore, because I don't think he cares about that question, because that would implicate the failure of the FBI and every other intelligence agency that he spends time covering for, not actually scrutinizing.
As Jonathan Blazer writes, memory hold, everyone knew January 6th was coming. I'm just going to make sure that we can see that. Thank you, Jonathan, for that.
All right, let's risk of losing the public.
I'm backing this up a couple
I
seconds.
really can't comment.
This is a good
but
question.
If you don't deliver a bombshell on Thursday, don't you run the risk of losing the public's attention here?
Our goal is to present the narrative of what happened in this country, how close we came to losing our democracy, what led to that violent attack on the 6th. The American people, I think, know a great deal already. They've seen a number of bombshells already. There's a great deal they haven't seen, but perhaps most important is the public hasn't seen it woven together, how one thing led to another, how one line of effort to overturn the election led to another, and ultimately led to terrible violence, the first non-peaceful transfer of power in our history. So we want to tell that comprehensive narrative, and we're aiming at people, an audience, frankly, that still has an open mind about these facts.
Yeah.
This is turning into a literary discussion, like a literary analysis discussion. They're talking about the woven, like the narratives that they're integrating. They're talking about who they're trying to reach.
Yeah.
They're doing a
We've
lot
got
of
our Act One.
covering.
We've got our Act One. Our Act One is strong. We have our narrative arc. We're still working on our Act Two and the connectivity. And but we have our themes and our narrative, and we need to workshop this more. We need to workshop this more on national television to really develop our narrative into a cohesive entity. By the way, this is exactly what he said before the Mueller testimony in July of 2019. So the Mueller report came out. It was a complete dud because after 2 years of Adam Schiff promising that there was going to be findings of a Trump and charges for a Trump-Russia conspiracy, there was nothing. And so then to try to revive this humiliating Russiagate narrative, Adam Schiff forced Robert Mueller, who really did not want to come before Congress for reasons that became obvious when we saw how he performed and how unfamiliar Mueller was with the details of his own investigation. Schiff dragged him before Congress when Mueller really didn't want to come and said, we want to present the narrative because most people don't know about it. And once they find out, it's going to be really damning. And it was humiliating. It was awful for everybody. And poor Robert Mueller. That was hard to watch. And then, so that failed. And then Adam Schiff doubled down with Ukraine Gate. That's when he impeached Trump for pressuring Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden while also freezing some weapons. And that's when, Adam Schiff went on the House floor and said, we have to fight Russia over there so we don't have to fight them here. And predictably, nobody cared. And Trump ended that impeachment with the highest approval ratings of his presidency. So that is Adam Schiff's track record so far when it comes to orchestrating these blockbuster congressional hearings.
And you know what? Adam Schiff is hoping that this sequel is going to do better than his original hit, his first hit, which was a dud. So maybe he'll turn this into a literary trilogy at some point. We already have. I got to give him a shout out for creating some foreshadowing, which was there when in that we knew that people knew that January 6th was going to happen. So I think maybe you and I should do a book report on this, Aaron.
Sounds good.
Where we analyze the themes, the narrative techniques, you know.
Sure.
There's a lot there.
Katie, this is very, very on point because, you know, Adam Schiff used to want to be a Hollywood screenwriter. He gave that a try before he became.
Serious?
Yes, I'm totally serious. He was a budding screenwriter. He's from LA. He's from the LA area.
Right.
And
of course.
he had a stint trying to be a screenwriter. So really, what's crazy is this is his true calling. Maybe this is a true passion, but unfortunately, he's filtering it through a congressional career that has so far been very disastrous for, I think, his own political party. So yes, we should encourage Adam Schiff to pursue his real passion, which is narrative writing and telling a story.
Right.
And let's do that in Hollywood, not in Congress.
Yeah, let's do it in Hollywood. You got to fight it, do it over there, so you don't have to do it over here.
Exactly.
There being LA, here being Washington D.C.
Exactly right. Exactly.
All right, let's keep going.
We want to counter the continuing propagation of big lies, and that's what our goal is.
I want to ask you about inflation, which is a problem throughout the country.
So
the San Francisco Fed said that the American Rescue Plan contributed about 3 percentage points to inflation. It's not the primary driver, but a contributor to it. In hindsight, do you think Democrats should have structured that $2 trillion package differently? Should it have been smaller?
No, I don't think so. And of course, there have been other studies that have reached the opposite conclusion, that it had an even more minimal impact on inflation.
It's a non-political
What I
group,
do think is the cause, and
you know that.
Well, no, I understand that. But again, there are studies that show that it had a negligible impact on inflation as well that are also very credible.
Yeah.
I think the reality is, though,
totally
and this I think
this
is borne out by all the
framing,
evidence,
deficit trolling.
is there was a global inflationary pressure.
That what caused inflation was economic relief, which is not true.
Global problem with supply chains. Our economy, in fact, grew so fast in the United States.
And it's an ideological
that
argument dressed up as a
because the demand when we emerged, so quickly from the pandemic and grew so many jobs, the disparity between that demand and the supply was so pronounced as to lead to this inflation. But people are suffering from it. We've got to attack it in every way we can. I think, sadly, the Republicans are getting in our way because they would rather have the issue of inflation than really do something about it to help the country. And this is what we're confronting in Congress and what the administration is battling against.
Well, the administration seems to also be making some foreign policy decisions that keep inflation in mind as well. We know the president is preparing to travel to Saudi Arabia.
Okay, so we're going to get into this in a second, but just note that Margaret Brennan does this annoying thing where she parrots a talking point, which is that economic relief is bad for the economy, and then gets very snippy when Adam Schiff pushes back on that. And we're going to pause it right here because we're going to set up this Saudi Arabia thing with another clip. We're going to go to another network. By the way, hold on. More disturbing than Adam Schiff is this. Guys, 1,300 watching, only 466 likes. You cowards. Hit the like, smash the like the smash. Let's get this up a little higher. Let's see, how many do we have now? Guys, we're going to give you 30 seconds to like. I'm sorry, I'm not above this. This is how we fight our tech corporate overlords, who try to suppress us. Pedro the Lion, thank you for smashing the hell out of it.
Yesterday on Twitter, some people were commenting about that Biden clip. You know how people love the one of him yelling at Scott Ritter, and two people were like, "Yeah, I got them shut down on YouTube because I reported them." I don't think that's true, but people are trying, and YouTube's trying.
About us?
Yeah.
Wow, guys, do you realize
did you see Chuck Todd said that Biden doesn't have a large fan base, and Twitter freaked out that, yes, we do, and you should be fired because you don't have a large fan base. The Biden supporters are turning into Trump supporters.
That's why he was trending on Twitter. I didn't know why. Okay, yeah. Okay, we're up to 533. That's okay. I mean, I'd really rather a higher number, but it's good to know we have so many cowards in the audience. All right, let's go.
I mean, Katie, let's not sugarcoat this. This is crushing. to know that less than half. Oh, no. Okay, there we go. Now we're actually above half. Now we're okay.
Yes.
Thank God. I was going to say, for us to continue doing the show, knowing that less than half of the viewers are liking it, that would have been an act of real courage on our part to persevere through that, because that's tough. That's a real challenge.
Tough, yeah.
So, but thank you to everyone who helped us get over.
Thank you. Yeah, we got to 739. Wow.
Thank you for keeping this going.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Next primaries will also reveal more about Donald Trump's hold on the Republican Party. And voters in South Carolina will soon decide if they're going to re-elect one of the few Republicans who voted to impeach President Trump after the January 6th insurrection. Five-term Congressman Tom Rice is in a heated race for the GOP nomination. And our chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Karl, traveled to South Carolina for an exclusive interview ahead of the vote.
Hold on. Sorry. This is we were going to, let's go. I'm sorry. Let's go back to the, that was my mistake. Let's go back to the Schiff thing that we were just watching.
Yeah, this summer, and he'll meet with the royal, making some foreign policy decisions that keep inflation in mind as well. We know the president is preparing to travel to Saudi Arabia this summer, and he'll meet with the royal family, including potentially Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, who U.S. intelligence said issued that order to kill or capture a U.S.-based writer named Jamal Khashoggi. This is what you said in February of 2021. Writer?
I think he should be shunned. I think he should be, I don't think the president should talk with him. I don't think the president should see him.
Should the president still go to Saudi Arabia and meet with the crown prince?
In my view, no. I wouldn't go. I wouldn't shake his hand. This is someone who butchered an American resident, cut him up into pieces in the most terrible and premeditated way. And until Saudi Arabia makes a radical change in terms of its human rights, I wouldn't want anything to do with him. Now, I understand the degree to which Saudi Arabia controls oil prices. I think that's a compelling argument for us to wean ourselves off of reliance on foreign oil and on oil more globally, so we don't have despots and murderers calling the shots. No, I wouldn't go, and if I had to go to the country for some other reason, I wouldn't meet with the crown prince. I think he should be shot.
So there's no way to justify a trip like this if it is an attempt to get Saudi Arabia to put more oil on the market and lower gas prices.
Well, in my view, we should make every effort to lower oil prices, but going hat in hand to someone who's murdered an American resident would not be on my list. And I would want to see Saudi Arabia lower their oil prices. I'd want to see them make changes in their human rights involved in that murder and in the torture of other detainees. Before I would extend that kind of dignity to Saudi Arabia or its leadership.
Chairman Schiff, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Chairman Schiff. Okay, I love this so much. So remember how we're supposed to be fighting in Ukraine for democracy, to stand up to autocracy? That was Joe Biden's big theme, and the entire media, Adam Schiff, all parrot that constantly. So unfortunately, that fight in Ukraine has escalated energy prices and other commodities around the world. Now, Biden administration is facing a real quandary. So what does it do immediately? It goes to one of the most autocratic and anti-democratic regimes in the world to kiss the ring, Saudi Arabia, to ask them to release more oil into the market. And the double irony of this is that not only is Saudi Arabia, a vicious autocracy, while Biden is claiming that this is like the singular fight of his administration to stand up to autocracy, but also it's conducting a multi-year brutal invasion bombing campaign in Yemen that has killed unknown numbers of people, but caused even more suffering so far than the Ukraine war has, than Russia has in Ukraine. And adding to the irony of that not only is Biden going genuflect before the Saudi monarchy to get their support as they're carrying out a brutal invasion of Yemen of the kind that Biden claims to oppose inside Ukraine, but also the U.S. has assisted with that Saudi invasion, and more details on that just came out, which I want to read from quickly. This is from the Washington Post. Hopefully you can see that. If not, I'll try to zoom in. Can you see that on screen?
Mm-hmm.
The Washington Post says, this is from a few days ago, while Russia's bombings of a maternity hospital and other civilian targets in Ukraine have drawn widespread public indignation as war crimes, thousands of similar strikes have taken place against Yemeni civilians. The indiscriminate bombings have become a hallmark of the Yemen war, drawing international scrutiny of the countries participating in the air campaign and those arming them, including the U.S. U.S. support for the Saudi war effort, which has been criticized by human rights groups and some in Congress, began during the Obama administration and has continued in fits and starts for 7 years. The fits and starts part is false. It just continued, period, without interruption. New analysis by the Washington Post provides the most complete picture yet of depth and breadth of U.S. support for the Saudi-led campaign, revealing that a substantial portion of the air raids were carried out by jets developed, maintained, and sold by U.S. companies and pilots who were trained by the U.S. military. So that's the latest from the Washington Post on U.S. support for the Saudi mass murder campaign in Yemen, which makes the timing of Biden's visit to go kiss the ring of the Saudi monarchy that much more revealing about the Biden administration's actual principles when it comes to democracy, autocracy, civilian deaths, and all that stuff.
Right. And do you notice how they always are like emphasize that it was an American killed? Like that's the only reason they care about Khashoggi being killed. He was a American resident. Yeah. It's never about just a violation of human rights of people who don't have if they don't have anything to do with America, then we don't really care.
Yeah, all these children who have died in Saudi bombings and also from the blockade that Saudi Arabia with U.S. help has imposed, denying vital supplies to the areas where most Yemenis live. I mean, that's the reality, but they don't exist because they're what Chomsky and Edward Herman called unworthy victims. They're victims killed with our support, so they don't matter.
Yeah. Also, so I really don't like this guy, Randy Quaid. He's a total MAGA weirdo, but he did tweet something kind of funny because while we were streaming, I think we caused this, guys. While we were streaming, Adam Schiff started trending on Twitter, which is funny. It just speaks to the power of useful idiots. But I got to show a Randy Quaid tweet, which he kind of is in line with what we're saying. Okay. Adam Schiff putting on a primetime shitcom with his J6 garbage will be unwatchable without a laugh track. So Randy Quaid is also noting the entertainment value of Adam Schiff.
You know, that's crazy. I swear to God, I've never heard the term shitcom before.
Me neither.
That's a great term. I mean,
it's
you can apply that to many sitcoms over the years that deserve it. Shitcom.
Yeah.
So good on Randy Quaid.
Good on Randy Quaid. Randy Quaid, come on the show.
No, please don't. No, we don't want Randy Quaid on the show. No.
He'd be really entertaining. Not intentionally entertaining. It's true.
Maybe we can talk about the term shitcom for an hour.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be enough. Yeah.
Yeah, and the vacation movies that he was in.
He was in vacation movies? Like which ones?
He was in Vacation, right? Okay. It was Vacation, then European Vacation, then Christmas Vacation. He was in Ukraine Vacation and Christmas Vacation.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. All right. Someone writes, "Am I the only person that remembers getting Jamal Khashoggi writing about bin Laden being a great friend?" No, there's a lot not to like about Khashoggi, but I still oppose dismembering him.
I don't recall him writing that bin Laden was a friend of his. This must have been a long time ago. But look, many people were friends with bin Laden before he attacked the U.S. on 9/11. But it's true that Khashoggi supported the Saudi war in Yemen. He had some really reactionary views, but the point is, it doesn't deserve that doesn't justify hacking him to death with a bone.
Right.
We can agree on that.
Yeah, I'm not a Khashoggian. Don't worry. All right. Okay, next. What do we got next?
Primaries will also reveal more about Donald Trump's hold on the Republican Party. And voters in South Carolina will soon decide if they're going to re-elect one of the few Republicans who voted to impeach President Trump after the January 6th insurrection. Five-term Congressman Tom Rice is in a heated race for the GOP nomination, And our chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Karl, traveled to South Carolina for an exclusive interview ahead of the vote.
I'm Tom Rice. I'm your congressman.
Tom. Hold on one second. People are complaining about the buffering, so I'm just going to refresh, okay? Yeah?
I don't think the problem is on our end because you both are streaming to me perfectly. I think it's through YouTube and I think people said it was better.
Okay, yeah. Well, more evidence that YouTube is trying to shut us down.
Just a side note on this clip. How annoyed would you be if you're having lunch or whatever and some guy comes up to you and says, "Hey, I'm your congressman"?
Yeah. Unless he paid for my lunch.
Yeah, unless he's paying for your lunch. Even then, geez, man.
Right.
Like, did I ask you to have lunch with me? Did we go out together? No.
Right. Is this on I don't see this on my agenda.
Yeah.
All right.
Rice is one of the few Republicans who stood up to Donald Trump after January 6th. Now he is fighting for his political life in the heart of Trump country.
Is you the guy voted to impeach Trump?
I am, yes, sir, yes, sir.
You done wrong there, buddy.
I'm not sorry for my vote. I think I did the right thing.
He faces the wrath of Donald Trump, the former president even coming to his South Carolina district to campaign against him.
Just again, on this point about interrupting people, that is maybe an underrated perk of being a politician. It's the only position I can think of, aside from being a police officer, maybe, where it seems like you have this natural right to go interrupt people when they're eating. I can't do that. I can't go up to people and say, "Hey, I'm Aaron Maté. I co-host Useful Idiots. I'm right for the Gray Zone. How you doing?" I can't do that. But a
maybe
politician
you can, Aaron. Have you ever tried?
No, I have not tried. But a politician can come and say, "Hey, I'm your congressman. Will you vote for me, please, or not?"
Right.
Yeah. Cool perk. I'm saying cool perk.
Cool perk, yeah.
Tom Rice, a disaster.
Rice, one of the architects of Trump's tax cuts, had been one of his most reliable supporters in Congress. But after January 6th,
Oh, I love this. This is amazing. So this is where we're supposed to worship these Republicans who turned against Trump for January 6th, while meanwhile, for the preceding 4 years, they were doing things like being the architect of his tax heist, which was the biggest robbery of the American people in history, the biggest upward transfer of wealth in history, where money was taken from the American people to give to the Republicans' real base, which is the ultra rich. And this guy was one of the architects of that. But now he's a liberal hero because he voted to impeach Trump for January 6th. That says it all right there.
It's just the Trump litmus test.
Exactly. Yeah. But not even the Trump, it's like the Trump policy litmus test. It's okay to support Trump's policies. Like, it's okay to support Trump robbing from poor people. You can't support Trump on January 6th.
Right. It's an aesthetic thing, really.
he was just one of 10 Republicans to vote to impeach him.
You surprised almost everybody when you came out and voted in favor of impeachment.
It wasn't that hard. I mean, when I thought about what had happened and the president's activity or inactivity that day, when he sat there and he put his own vice president's life and the vice president's wife and daughter's life at risk of people shouting, "Hang Mike Pence." When he watched the Capitol, the People's House, being sacked, when he watched the Capitol police officers being beaten for 3 or 4 hours and lifted not one finger to stop it. The more I read about that and the more I learned about it, it was clear to me what I had to do. I was livid. I'm livid today about it. I took an oath to protect the Constitution, and I did it then, and I would do it again tomorrow.
How many of your House Republican colleagues believe exactly what you just said, privately?
I think more than you might imagine.
There's no way you could support him for president again.
No. There's one way.
Yeah.
If he apologized.
So if he came out and said, "I'm sorry," I mean, all that goes
If he came out and said, "I'm sorry that I made a huge mistake on January 6th," then I might consider it.
What will it mean for the...
Guys, Rice is a very polite man. That's his ethos. Etiquette. All he'd have to do is say sorry. Makes me think of that Justin Bieber song. Is it too late now to say sorry? Because I'm missing more than your body.
50 Very, very appropriate.
We know the answer for Rice. The
Yep.
answer is no.
No.
It's a great
Well,
song,
for
by
me,
the way.
as a minimum for continuing in public life, I think Rice should apologize for being the architect of Trump's tax heist. That's what I like to see him apologize for.
Yeah.
Look, you know what? You know, it's like the more he describes what Trump did, yeah. I mean, that was that was impeachable, definitely. I'm not saying it's not. It's just so funny though that all these people preside over these rapacious Trump policies that hurt working people, and none of that, like no one's gonna say like, why did you support the tax heist back under Trump? And no one's gonna try to hold them accountable for that. Everyone just gets a pass now because they voted the right way on January 6th.
Right. This is funny. So someone, Alan Harkin writes, I live in South Carolina. I can say the reasons he voted to impeach are not going to be discussed on ABC. He is a resentful, loathsome, greedy traitor to South Carolina. He may seem polite, but I assure you he is not. I wasn't really being sincere when I was saying he was polite. I was trying to point out how ridiculous it is to pin your forgiving someone for political uprising on an apology. Well, I think that's a good thing in life. I believe in turn the other cheek. I believe in forgiveness. You know, forgiveness is a lot about, it's not about the other person. It's also about your own freedom.
So true.
So true. But it's good to have this insider's insight from Alan Harkin in South Carolina. Now we know that he's not polite, which makes him that much more dishonest.
Republican Party if he runs again.
I think it will hurt us.
He has kept a low profile since that vote. Rice says he has turned down some 200 interviews, but he knows his impeachment vote may cost him his seat in Congress.
Trump came to your district not long ago.
Yeah, he did.
And said some terrible things about you. He said you were a disaster.
And now Tom Rice looks like a total fool.
What's that like when the most prominent Republican in the land comes to your district? I mean, he's not out there campaigning in a bunch of districts. He came to your backyard.
You know, I said
you're a disaster.
I said it at the time, but you know, if I am a disaster and a total fool, and I voted with him 169 out of 180 times, what does that make him, right? I mean, I'm taking his lead. So
that's funny. He's basically making the same point you make, Aaron, which is on policy, he's totally Trumpian. Right.
I'm just as evil as Trump when it comes to hurting working people.
Yeah.
So
if I'm terrible, the joke's on him because we're equally terrible, turns out.
But, you know, I said at the time, he's a narcissist, and he's driven by attention, and he's driven by revenge.
Why are you such an outlier then on your willingness to stand up to Donald Trump? I mean, why are there so few Republicans like you?
It's really interesting to hear people call me a rhino.
Republican in name only, when you have a
yeah.
voting record that is more conservative than...
Right, and absolutely defending the Constitution.
When you're such a documented scumbag in your policies. So it's so funny that people are saying you're not a scumbag when you are really a scumbag.
Right. I know. It is pretty funny. He is more Trumpian.
Constitution is a bedrock of the Republican platform, right? Defend the Constitution, and that's what I did. That was the conservative vote. But
impeachment was the conservative vote.
Absolutely. It was the conservative vote. There's no question in my mind.
Rice says he is disappointed Republican leader Kevin McCarthy embraced Trump after January 6th.
If the Republicans win back the House, do you think McCarthy should be Speaker?
I'm not going to answer that one right now. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
And what about Liz Cheney?
I think she'd be a great Speaker.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think she's a real Republican. I think she is very conservative, and I think she's a fearless leader.
He hopes voters...
Amen to that. She definitely is a real Republican. The daughter of Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
Arch neocon, loves to steal the money of working people to fund all of her various imperial projects abroad, destroying other countries. Yes, Liz Cheney is a real Republican, and that's why these people hate Trump. These people love Trump when he's stealing from working people. They don't like Trump when he's being a buffoon and embarrassing them. And that's why they want him gone. And that's why the establishment media wants him gone too, is because they want to go back to pretending as if the Republicans are this, like, you know, principled, serious party that stands for something. It's Trump that puts a lie to all of that. And that's what they want to go back to, because really the system works beautifully when it's two parties that are essentially the same, pretending as if they're opposing each other because they disagree on a couple of issues while agreeing on the core issues that keep the war machine going. That's really what this system is about. And Trump, because he's such a cartoonish character, is a real interruption to that, and that's why they want him gone. Everybody wants him gone. All right. Well, look, I think we can move on from Rep. Rice.
Oh, okay.
Congressman Rice.
Yeah.
But that was really enlightening. So thank you, Congressmember Rice, and good luck to you in your reelection. Yeah.
We salute you. Let's see. So what's next? We did a little bit of, I think we should go to Mayo Pete.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Secretary Buttigieg, thanks for joining us this morning. Let's play off what Jamie Dimon was just saying there. He says he sees storm clouds coming. Elon Musk is worried about the future of the economy. Larry Summers, former Democratic Treasury Secretary, is worried about a recession later this year as well. Is that what Americans should be braced for?
Well, right now, what we are doing is preparing for the road ahead, where you're not going to see this kind of swift, red-hot, wildly fast economic growth that we had over the last year or so, but still expecting strong economic growth and working to keep it that way. Now, look, whether we're talking about growth or whether we're talking about inflation, one very important principle right now that this administration takes seriously and respects is to allow the Fed to do its job. But the administration and Congress have a job to do as well, and that is to support growth in this economy, including issues on the supply side of our economy, like making sure our supply chains are stronger, making sure that we invest in the capacity, both physical and human, of our economy to keep up with demand, and taking action where we can to lower costs for American families. And there are a number of things that the president has proposed that we do that Congress could do. Lowering the cost of insulin, lowering the cost of childcare, lowering the cost of housing, things that would make a difference, no matter what's happening macroeconomically, would make life easier for Americans who are facing these economic question marks right now.
We just saw in Rebecca's piece.
Those are all great things, except we know that people like Manchin and Sinema will never vote for them, and Biden will never use his political power to force them to.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
exactly right.
President Biden saying he's doing everything he can. He believes he's doing everything he can on his own to combat inflation. But Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna disagrees. He's saying there's way more we can do. He wrote that in the New York Times. Way more we can do right now to stop inflation, including having various departments. The Department of Energy buy up more petroleum. Department of Agriculture buy up more food. Buy up surplus baby formula. Should the president set up the kind of task force that Congressman Khanna is talking about and start to make those purchases?
Well, look, the president's made clear that inflation is his top economic priority, and he's laid out a very clear strategy for doing that. I'm sure additional ideas will be welcomed, especially when they're ideas that come in good faith. But right now, the president has a very clear plan. Now, unfortunately, from the other side of the aisle, what we're seeing is not very much by way of concrete ideas, right? We've heard something from Senator Rick Scott about raising taxes on lower and middle income Americans. There's a continued push to reduce or to remove the ACA, and you have continued culture wars. But what we have in the administration and working with partners of our in Congress who are coming through with a number of good ideas is to continue to take the steps that are needed, both on the price side and on the growth side, to keep our economy strong.
Americans feel
he manages really to say absolutely nothing but platitudes.
Yes, and you know how he likes to tout the infrastructure plan?
Yeah.
He omits, though, that was passed only after Democrats abandoned Build Back Better, which would have much more substantially addressed all the issues that he's claiming Democrats are addressing. But Democrats basically abandoned Build Back Better. And that was back when, remember when Pramila Jayapal was saying there's no way we're going to decouple Build Back Better from infrastructure and just go ahead and try us. And then so Biden did exactly that. He tried them and they caved. They totally caved. And so all the things that Democrats are now facing sinking poll numbers over could have been, not all of them, it's, a lot of them could have substantially been addressed by Build Back Better, which has been completely abandoned.
Right.
By the way, not only did they abandon Build Back Better, but they, like, as a whole, but even the individual provisions, they could have put those to a vote individually to see, you know, how Republicans and Manchin and Sinema vote on them. You know, for example, do you want to take away childcare from struggling families? They could have done that, just vote on some of the components individually, but they haven't even done that. So that's what I think is missing from this conversation. And it's like, because Build Back Better, we've forgotten about it. I don't even see it being raised by news anchors like George Stephanopoulos.
Right. You should try to write for his show.
That's a great, yes.
Yeah, you could be a producer. Yeah. Give him the right questions to ask.
Oh, I'd love that job. Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else? We're seeing $5 a gallon, approaching $5 a gallon across the country right now as we head into the summer vacation season. Earlier this year, the president tapped the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Hasn't made any difference at all. Was that a failure?
Well, look, I don't think it's correct to say it hasn't made any difference at all. This is an action that helped to stabilize global oil prices. The action the president took around ethanol, introducing additional flexibility there, that's having an effect on prices in the Midwest. But we also know that the price of gasoline is not set by a dial in the Oval Office. And when an oil company is deciding hour by hour how much to charge you for a gallon of gas, they're not calling the administration to ask what they should do. They're doing it based on their goal of maximizing their profits. It's been very striking right now to see these oil companies who have become almost ridiculously profitable. And you hear these oil executives on the record talking about how they're not going to increase production. Why would they? They're doing great right now. It's why the president has called for a use it or lose it policy, where if you're sitting on these thousands of permits like these oil executives have been, and you're not doing anything with them, then you're going to be held accountable for that. Now, so far, congressional Republicans have blocked action to do something like that, but we think that's another step that would make a difference among the many, many steps the president's already taken.
You're a veteran of the presidential campaign trail. What's your advice to Democrats who are facing the voters this year in the face of those high prices?
My advice is flee. Run for your life.
Run.
Don't look back. And just keep spewing platitudes on your way out the door. That's my advice. Yeah. My advice also is, as I did in Iowa, even if I lose the race,
pretend to win. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Pretend as if I won. Pretend as if you win. Why not?
Good idea. Using the Shadow app.
To tell everyone to download the Shadow app. It's developed by Robbie Mook and other elite, corrupt Clinton cronies, and get it to ruin the election and claim victory.
Yeah. And refuse to step down. Yeah.
Well, look. The first is to recognize that this is a real challenge that we're all facing, that families are feeling that pain and that we're acting on it. But look, the bottom line is that there are two very clear and very different approaches here. There is our approach, which is to find solutions to invest in our supply chains like we're doing with the infrastructure money certainly in my department and in others, to do everything that we can to lower costs for American families, like the cost of insulin and prescription drugs. And then there's the other path that congressional conservatives have put forward, which doesn't really speak much to inflation. It's raising taxes on lower and middle class families, making a lot of political hay out of the very real challenges that families are feeling, and going.
I like this comment from Modern Mystic. Pete's oratory is nearly identical to Patrick Bateman in American Psycho.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
To war with Mickey Mouse. So there's a very clear difference in strategies here against some very challenging economic problems. And by the way, you can also look at the track record of where we've gotten over the course of the last year. Of course, we have challenges right now, but look at where this administration began, where there was a very real risk of recession, if not depression, and an American Rescue Plan that has made enormous differences in communities across the country. Pretty much any mayor I talk to talks about the different investments that they're making in their community thanks to that. And along with that, extraordinary job growth, exceptionally low unemployment, increases in income for American families. That didn't just happen on its own. And the fact that unemployment is as low as it is right now would not have happened, I believe, if it were not for the actions that the president took and the actions that Congress did move through and pass, like the rescue plan and what we're increasingly going to see the benefits of, this infrastructure law. A lot of people didn't think you could do anything on a bipartisan basis. But this president did it, and there are a lot of people in Congress who were part of that who have a lot to be proud of.
You are coming to us from South Bend.
Hi.
And again, the infrastructure plan was done by abandoning the Build Back Better plan, which
Right.
he omits, and
Which
which
he's
would have made
probably-
such a big difference.
Yeah. He's probably proud of that, though.
He probably is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, is that it
All
for
right,
Mayor
we got-
Pete?
Yeah, that's it. Sure. We got, let's see, clip number 6 from this week.
Well, yeah, we got some polls. We got
Oh, you
some
want to go to
polls.
the polls first?
I think that's what this is.
Oh, okay. Got it.
New insights
let's take
into
a
the
look.
headwinds Democrats are
You're
facing.
right.
Yeah, George, what you're seeing is the recount largely.
Oh, sorry. My
will
bad.
do my part.
I didn't mean to. Sorry about that. You want to redo that?
Our new polling with Ipsos gives us new insights into the headwinds Democrats are facing.
Yeah, George, what you're seeing is President Biden is a serious drag on Democratic candidates nationwide, and it's driven by his approval rating on a range of issues. He is badly underwater on all of the top issues, including the big ones: inflation, gas prices. He has less than 30% approval rating on the issues that we're told by voters are dominating their state of mind. Even on issues like gun violence, abortion rights, issues that he is elevating into the conversation in recent weeks, he is still significantly underwater. The only issue that we see him above water on, 56% approval rating on his handling of COVID-19. The problem for Democrats and Biden is that that happens to be the issue that voters are telling us is the least likely to be animating their vote this fall. And that's also spilling over into an enthusiasm.
Katie, wait a second. I have a concern. I think these polls are rigged. You know why? I did not see in that list an option to blame Putin's price hike.
You're right.
Right? You remember Biden's told us that that's really the cause of everyone's problems is
Yeah.
Putin's price hike. And that's not an option for people to blame. So without that choice, Biden is shouldering the burden. Imagine that the elected president of a country whose policies have contributed to all of this being blamed and not Putin's price hike.
He's being set up.
Yeah, he's being set up. This is a setup.
This is set
This
up. You know,
this correspondent and these poll people could be working for Vladimir Putin.
yeah, they're right-wing talking points, like Brian Stelter always points out, or they're Putinist talking points. You know what other option there isn't up there on the board?
What's that?
Susan Sarandon.
That's right. That's another conspiracy right there. That's true.
Another cause. Yeah.
I think this is definitely Putin. Yeah. But also,
I mean, I'm going to say half Putin, half Sarandon.
Half Putin, half Sarandon. But notice also that on the list of all these top issues, it's interesting. Ukraine is not even there, even though Ukraine has been the dominant focus of the Biden administration for many months now, and certainly the recipient of tens of billions of dollars in taxpayer money. So that's not even posed to as an issue for voters, so they can't even weigh in on it. And that speaks to, I think, how out of whack Biden's priorities are, thinking that somehow Americans are going to care about winning a proxy war against Russia at the expense of all these other issues becoming even worse, including inflation and gas prices.
By the way, Just Stuff pointed out something really important. Those are Russian colors on that screen.
Really?
To be animating their vote this
Look
fall.
at that. You're right. This is obviously Putin. There's red.
This is
there's white,
obviously
there's blue. You're
Putinist
right.
propaganda. Yeah.
You're right.
Yep.
That's the only explanation.
And Sam K writes, thank God CNN has a monitor that they can underline. Otherwise, we would have to read. That is true. Thank you. Very grateful for that. Yeah. All right. Should we keep watching?
And that's also spilling over into an enthusiasm gap that's developing. You see this in our poll with Ipsos. 13-point edge for Republicans in terms of people that say that they are very enthusiastic, very eager to vote this fall. You're seeing independent voters largely sitting out the midterms so far. Now, that enthusiasm gap is a little narrower than it was last time we polled on it 2 months ago. But still, those are the kind of numbers that have Democrats worried about a potential wave election.
We're going to learn a lot about the shape of the House in this week's primaries.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch these states that are voting on Tuesday because you've got almost a perfect microcosm of the issues that Democrats are running up into nationwide. We think of California as a big blue monster of a state, but actually there's at least 4 Democratic-held House seats that could be in play. There's a few places that Democrats think.
That's kind of offensive to California. Big blue monster of a state. Cookie Monster. California is Cookie Monster.
they can go on offense as well. Montana's actually adding a House seat for the first time in 3 decades. Democrats at first thought they could be competitive there, but those hopes have really faded. And I want to zoom in on a couple of states in particular to tell the story that the Democrats are facing in so many places. This is the district of Congresswoman Cindy Axne. That district was carried by Donald Trump both times. Now, she's got all these new voters down here in the southern part of the state. That's because of the redistricting process. Those are new voters, many of them Republican voters. Cindy Axne carried her district only by about 6,000 votes last time around. Now she has this double whammy of a new district and a much tougher national environment. And over in New Jersey, it's actually even more stark. Congressman Tom Malinowski from the 7th District in North Jersey, Democrats actually carved his district up and gave him a more Republican district by, according to our friends at 538, about 7 points more Republicans than it was before. And that has to do with efforts to try to shore up other Democrats. The net result is Malinowski has a much tougher district in a much tougher year. Last time around, he won by only about 5,000 votes.
You showed the president underwater, even on the issues he's been
Look at
highlighting.
those. They
like
do
guns
really love
and abortion. What else is the poll say
underlining,
about that?
writing stuff on
Yeah,
it.
this is when we ask people the top voting issue, what voters are thinking about. Number one when they go to the polls. No surprise, inflation and the economy, they are number 1 and number 2. This becomes kind of interesting, and this might give some glimmers of hope to Democrats about the potential to change the issue set. The fact that gun violence, abortion rights, now cited by 17%, 12% of voters as their first issue, their number 1 issue. Those are the kind of issues that, typically speaking, more voters are aligned with Democrats' views than Republican views. The question then becomes, and to the point that Chris Christie and others were making earlier, how do you take these polling issues and make them voting issues? That's going to be the big challenge for Democrats this year.
Rick Klein of the Midterm Monitor, thanks very much.
Midterm Monitor. All right.
Well, to answer your question, what you do is just keep saying the words Putin's price hike, Putin's price hike, Putin's price hike.
PPH.
They will all coalesce into a master narrative to go back to Adam Schiff, and people will understand who to vote for, which is the Democrats, because they're the ones standing up to Putin's price hike.
Yeah, they're the only ones.
Yeah.
Who have the courage to stand up to PPH, because they know how to recognize the RPB. Russian playbook.
The Russian playbook, yes.
Yeah.
Kenny, before we wrap, I have to go back to the issue of Saudi Arabia, because there's a really interesting, so as we were talking about, Biden is facing this awkward situation now where he's been ranting about democracy versus autocracy and standing up to murderous invasions. And now he's going before one of the worst autocracies in the world, which is carrying out the worst invasion in the world, which is Saudi Arabia and its invasion of Yemen, because he's trying to get them to put oil into the market to help with the higher prices of oil. So this is awkward because, it's weird to claim you're against invasions and autocracies while going to kiss the ring of Saudi Arabia. So a former Trump official actually has a really good idea for her Biden administration colleagues. Her name is Kirsten Fontenrose, and this is what she told Politico about how to address the awkwardness of having to go once again to genuflect before the Saudi Arabian autocracy. She says this, quote, "Shaping young leaders into the types of decision makers America would like as partners takes mentoring, monitoring, and shaping," said Kirsten Fontenrose, a former top Middle East official on Trump's National Security Council. "There is no reason why we can't establish something akin to a private seminar series for Mohammed bin Salman and the inner Saudi Arabia circle, as well as other young leaders in the Gulf or elsewhere around the globe." So you hear that? This is the guy who ordered apparently the hacking of Jamal Khashoggi, who's carrying out the mass murder campaign in Yemen. But all that could be resolved if he just takes part in a private seminar series for Gulf dictators like MBS and others.
They could turn it into a masterclass for the public afterwards. I mean, it could be private, but then you could just repurpose it.
The problem making it public is it's not too relatable. And most people can't really relate to what it's like to rule over a dynastic monarchy that suppresses basic human rights with obscene wealth. MBS has like multiple homes around the world, including a palace in France. I don't know how you make that relatable to a broader audience.
Well, honestly, if you're a good storyteller and you're a good teacher, you do make it relatable. But it's definitely a challenge. You're right.
Well, this is where they can bring in Adam Schiff to help them out because he's
with the
really
narrative.
into narrative right now. He's hot with narrative right now.
He's hot with narrative. Yeah. Well, guys, this has been great. Make sure you subscribe to this so that you don't miss any of our streams. And also you get our videos. Like our video from this week was great with Ali Abu Nima. Make sure you come to our call-in, and to subscribe, you hit subscribe and then the bell. Also, I don't want to reveal it, but I don't usually do this, but this Tuesday at 7 p.m., there's going to be a pretty good episode of the Katie Halper Show live stream. I'm not going to say what it is, but it relates to a feud between two warring factions, and Aaron's sometimes engaged in that feud.
Really?
I'll just leave it at that. Yeah. I'll tell you.
I'm enticed.
You're gonna like it. Yeah.
I'm enticed.
Yeah. So subscribe to the Katie Halper Show also. Yeah. So and come by tomorrow at 7 p.m. EST. Okay. Great. So we're gonna see you right now on call-in.
That's right. The link is below in the YouTube blurb, and you also can go to usefulidiots.substack.com to get bonus content and to help support the show. We make Monday morning free for everybody, and help keep it that way by supporting us at usefulidiots.substack.com.
Yes, indeed. Great extended interviews, bonus content. You get to learn cool things about Aaron Maté's child acting career.
Oh my God, there's so much more to reveal.
There's so much.
I haven't told even I told even a fraction of the story. Oh my God. Yeah, the things I saw. Wow. Yeah. All right, everybody, join us on Call-In if you're around, and otherwise we'll see you next time.
Great. Thanks, everyone.